Good afternoon, everybody. I hope everyone can hear me on the live stream. I'm just going to let some people in. So just bear with me just one moment. And good afternoon, Mark. I hope you can hear me. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining me. I'm just going to talk for a small bit while we let people in. I can see Mark is joining us, and I'm hoping for a few others whilst on StreamYard via Facebook and YouTube. And so if anyone has any difficulty hearing me, just let me know. I'm just going to do my usual audio checks myself, and then we can see. Make sure everyone is here. So, how is everyone today? This Wednesday, we're going to be talking about process maps very shortly, and going to be going through what WTS is, what Warranted Technical Solution is, very briefly. But obviously, today's focus is on process maps and why I feel they're foundation to all small businesses. If you have any comments, please add them into the chat wherever you are, and I'll try and get to them when appropriate. So let's begin. So, as I said earlier, I'm Ian Warrender from Warrender Technical Solutions. I bring order to chaos, and I do that by helping small businesses with various different functions. Those functions are really around organizational processes, planning, systems, and administration. Organizational, making sure that communication gets from the top end of a business to the people that need to know the instructions. Make sure there's not too many layers there. Make sure there's no Chinese whispers. Make sure the communication's set up correctly. Processes, that's going to be the main focus of today. We're going to be talking a lot about process maps, but it's also about the efficiency of processes that I'll look at. Planning, this is a major issue for small businesses, and try and make sure that there's a long-term goal in there, and that long-term goal isn't lost with all the client work that people are, got on systems. There's so many different applications out there, so many different elements of that, whether that's the CRM, that's their document control system, whether that's they're using Trello for the planning, whatever it is, there's a lot of systems out there, and it's make sure they talk to each other, make sure people aren't just got lots of shiny ones, and make sure they're fit for purpose. And the final one's administration. My background is document control, and so I can support with administration directly, but also in improving how that administration is done. Got a degree, but really the important part is the 15 years in business improvement. So we're here today to talk about process maps. And one of the things about process maps is I feel they are one of the foundations that businesses need to be built on. There's other foundations such as the communication, such as the systems, all of which are going to help. Now, with any business, you can build it ad hoc. You can build it progressively and bring things in and try to fit them into the business, or you can start off with that strong foundation. The problem is that when you do things progressively, although you're going to get growth, you're going to get growth no matter what you do. As long as you're working on your business, the business is going to grow. There's going to be a limit. There's going to be, with the ad hoc approach, you're going to reach a point when things are going to get busy, chaotic, where you're just checking on staff, where you're repeating things and you're firefighting, and you stop the focus on the development of the business, and you just focus on today and today. And when you do that, as I said, things are busy and chaotic, and you can't keep doing that loop of focusing on the day, because then you're not focusing on the future. And without that future focus, the business will be unstable and you'll burn yourself out, and you'll end up at the point where there won't be a business, or there'll be a business that you're not enjoying. And anyone that's starting a new business, there's got to be a key element of enjoying that business, enjoying what you do. Talked a lot about processes and process maps, but what do I mean when I say process map? A process map is a flow of activities and data. And what I mean by that is it's a way to show how information, resources, and data move throughout a business. There's going to be more than one process map for a business. There's going to be the core format of the business, whether that is to do with let's say product, be the core element to make that product. Whether it's a service, there'll be data that flowing through, there'll be reports that be made. But there's also other elements to a business. So background noise, it's summer holidays here, so occasionally there's going to be a bit of a background noise coming in, but that's okay. But there's not just the core data. There is all the elements that surround that. There's the marketing, there's the cash flow, there's quotations, there's other processes that happen within a business that are critical to the business functioning, but they all have a starting point. They all have a point when information, resources, data come in, and then there'll be inputs that be added into that. There'll be decisions to be made. I'm going to come into decisions a bit more shortly. And then from there, there'll be some fixed outputs. Now, by fixed outputs, I mean there'll be elements within the business that will go towards the final output. So product, that'll be the elements that make up the final product. But even in a service-based industry where you've got reports, there's elements that go towards building up that report. We're obviously going to have steps. All processes have got steps that follow one after the other. And then we've got an end result. Now, I'd mentioned earlier that about the decision points. And on this one, you might see I've used the word binary decision points. And there's a reason for that. We've got this statement where someone said that the client can choose between metal, hardwood, and plastic. And you could conceive of a process map that has what material did the client select? Did they select metal? Did they select hardwood? Did they select plastic? Now, initially, that may seem a valid way of doing it, but you wouldn't see that on any process map that I did. The way that you'd see it for myself is you'd see it set out in these binary decision points. By binary, we just mean the two options, be that yes, no, stop, go, wait, continue, whatever it is. And if anyone's done any software mapping, you have this ingrained in you. So did the client select metal? Yes, step A. No, go to the next question. Did it select hardwood? Yes, step B. Did it select plastic? Go to step D. Initially, that can look very similar to the options we had earlier. However, here we open up a fourth option. What happens if the client doesn't select one of the three options? Well, you can say, we only have those three options. The client can't select any. Well, you still got a step where you go back to the client when they select a bespoke material and go, you need to select one of these. Or you could say that we look at what the material is that the client is suggesting, and then we pick the most suitable connected with that. Again, there's still some steps involved in that. Or you could say, well, actually, there's a whole set of unique steps that we use for bespoke material. The point being is that you're not limiting yourself. By having binary decision points, you're making sure that all options are put onto the process map, and even the non-standard options. For small businesses, when you're by yourself and you're going through processes and you don't have a process map because it's just you, when something non-standard happens, you'll fall back on your experience. You'll fall back on things you've done in the past, ways of doing other things. Somebody's coming in your business, staff, or somebody's aiding your business, a VA, for example, they will not have the same experience, the same knowledge as yourself, and they won't know what to do at the non-standard points. The obvious thing is for them to come and continually ask you, what do I do at this point? What do I do at this point? Or you can put in a process map, as we'll come to in a bit more detail very shortly. So that's the definition of process map, but there's 3 reasons why I feel that process maps are essential to all businesses, small, medium, large. And we're just going to touch on 3 today, but there are many, many more than this. But obviously, I don't want to keep you for a full afternoon as I go through the countless other options they are. So today, we're just going to focus on 3. Now, for this, we need to follow the journey of either Bob or Bobby. Mark, because you're on Zoom, so I can actually see you directly. Is there any particular person you would like to follow? Would you like to follow Bob or Bobby's journey? You can make yourself off mute, or you can put that in the chat. Brilliant, Bob. So, Mark, can you give us some details about Bob? How old is he, for example? And education, did he go to university? Did he do some courses while in work? Has he done a degree later on in life? What sort of education has he got? Degree in English. If I can spell English, which I'm sure that that Bob can with this degree. Now, Bob is coming out of a corporate world. I'm going to say he was a teacher, and so he's leaving teaching and he's going into either a product or service. What would you like him to move into? What's his solo business going to be? Is it going to be a product or is it going to be a service? And finally, what business would you like him to start? He's 35-year-old. He's been an English teacher. What service would you like him to move into? A plumber. So he's definitely moving away from the degree in English. Now, there's lots of other questions that we can ask about Bob. We can ask about his upbringing. We can ask about his family life. We can look at how he did in his teaching and what actually moved him into plumbing. But the point is that Bob is a unique individual, as we can see here. Okay, got a degree in English, but he's actually moving away from that. He's becoming a plumber. And so Bob is a unique individual. He's not you, he's not me, he's not anyone else that's listening to this. Bob is a unique individual, which is important. Now, as we said, Bob is going to start his own business. But Bob, you know, he's got some past experience. He's not just jumping into plumbing because, you know, he feels like it. You know, he's done some things on the side in the past with plumbing. He's probably helped out somebody that had a plumbing business. He's, you know, he's done some courses on plumbing. You know, there's things in there that will make him want to become a plumber. Now, because he wants to become a plumber, he's got some past experience in there. But he's not just doing it to copy somebody else. He's doing it because he himself wants to become a plumber. He wants to get a successful business. So there's going to be things in there that he will want to bring to it. He will want to bring some new ideas. Now, that's the plumbing side. Now, one important thing is that these ideas are inside his head. They're not a process map. I might have had a nice process map up on the screen, but these ideas are inside his head, and they're just thoughts of how he wants to do things. He's not going to start mapping them out. He's just going to go solo. So he's not going to start, doing things by himself. And these are the core ideas, behind the actual plumbing. But as we know, anyone that's starting their own business, there's other elements. There's quotations, marketing, cash flow. There's things that, you wouldn't have past experience for. So Bob, being sensible, he has gone on some courses. He's joined some networks. He's looked at some YouTube videos. He's done some learning so that he himself can, learn up on how to do marketing, how to control money. He's still not going to copy exactly what people are saying. He's going to take multiple sources of information, pull them together with his own thought. And he's going to have some ideas of how he wants to control his marketing, how he's controlling his money. Again, important to note that he's not writing process maps out when he first does this. He's just got some ideas in his head of how he wants to run the core structure, how he wants to do the marketing, how he wants to do, the money control. Sure, with the courses he did, he might have some basic notes. He might have some, top level ideas, but he's not going to have the situation where he's got detailed process maps, because why would he? He's by himself. He's a single person. He's not bringing any support. 18 months pass. Man Bob's plumbing has become, he has had some mistakes in the beginning because he was an English teacher, and jumping over to plumbing probably wasn't easy. But he's also had some successes. It's not been a bad year completely. But from both the successes and the problems he's had, he's going to have some relevant experience. Those ideas inside his head are going to morph. He's going to find some new ways of doing things. He's going to learn some new techniques. He's maybe going into more training. He's going to bring some relevant experience into what he is doing. Bear with me 2 seconds. Lara, go and see Mum, please. Yes, you said I'm doing some training at the minute. Thank you. Apologies. As I said, it's summer holidays here. Interruptions are going to be minimal, but sometimes can't be helped. So 18 months later, he's now morphed what he's doing. He's got some relevant experiences into what he's doing. And because he's been successful, he's going to bring in some new people. He's going to actually expand his business beyond himself to some new people. Now, we're going to leave Bob very briefly. We're going to come back and see how his team is doing shortly. But I've done enough talking. And I'm sure people out there have got experience in drawing, whether that was when you were a 5-year-old and you got a picture put up on the fridge, or maybe more recently and you've got you'd got a business in art. Well, I'm going to commission you to do me a drawing. And so if you can get yourself if you haven't already, piece of paper and a pencil or pen. And what's going to happen is I'm going to describe a picture to you. And I want you to draw it out. And then before I then show you, because I will show you what you should have drawn, I want some general thoughts about what it is like that you think you have drawn. And then we'll go from there and we'll discuss it. So on this picture, commissioning, if you've got a piece of paper and pencil ready, I want you to start off with a horizontal line about 2/3 up the page, about 1/3 from the top, just a straight horizontal line. Now then, on the horizontal line, can you draw a semicircle? A semicircle on the horizontal line. Now, dropping down from that semicircle to the bottom of the page, a triangle. A triangle dropping down from that semicircle to the bottom of the page. Now, we've got a triangle, bottom of the page, but now we want a smaller triangle inside the bigger triangle. This activity is significantly more fun in person, as you can imagine. So go around and see how people are constructing their drawings. Now then, you've got this triangle, you've got this inner triangle, you've got this outer triangle. So there's obviously a difference between the two. Now, between the inner and outer triangles, can you draw a series of horizontal lines? Been doing some face-to-face networking recently. It is really good that the world's opening up. Yesterday I actually had some networking on the beach, which was fantastic weather yesterday. It's just nice that we're getting back to a new normality. I wouldn't call it normal, but definitely to a new normality. So we've got that inner triangle, we've got the outer triangle. Now, on the inner triangle, can you draw a series of thin vertical rectangles? And then yesterday afternoon, a different networking group met in a place called Country Way, which is in Jesmond in northeast England, and lovely little place, very cozy, coffee, cakes. So it was nice actually meeting people instead of just being behind screens. But being able to be behind screens does give us the opportunity, to open things up to a wider audience, which is in itself good. So in a triangle, we've got a series of the thin vertical rectangles. Now, to the left-hand side of those thin vertical rectangles, can you draw a car? Now, can you draw a car better than I can draw a car, because I can't draw a car? So on the left-hand side of those thin vertical rectangles, can you draw a car? Now then, if you're still with me, which is always interesting by this point, you've got the larger triangle on the outside. I want you to draw three thin vertical rectangles on the left-hand side outside the big triangle, going just beyond the horizontal line you've got, a third of the page down. I've got three of these drawings, different ones. So if you've been involved in any of the other ones I've been doing over the summer, because I've been running the same one, you might have seen a different picture. So there are other options. I'm going to expand if I keep doing this online to try and keep this interesting. So on top of those three thin vertical rectangles, I want you to draw a circle on top of each, but to make it interesting, make it a bumpy circle. we're nearly done. So I will be putting you out your misery very shortly. On the right-hand side, again, outside the large triangle, if you can draw 2 rectangles, but they don't need to be thin this time, you make them chunky. Again, from about the edge of the triangle up to just beyond the horizontal line. But to test your skills, make these 3D, make them cuboid, so not just average rectangles, make them a bit more cuboid, a bit more 3D. And then I want you to top those cuboids, those 3D rectangles, with one with, let's have a look, a semicircle, and the other one with a triangle. Now then, what have you drawn? If you can put in comments what it is that you've drawn, and then we can see. If we're in person, it'd be a perfect one to take to bring up to the front. Sometimes it's good if we have a Facebook group to have a look at, to take pictures and see what it is. We've got somebody here saying they've got a scale. Okay, that's interesting. Let's have a look. A mess. Yes, that is quite often what people say. So let me show you what you should have drawn. Confusion. Yes. So let's undo that confusion. Let's undo that mess. I'm going to follow the exact same instructions I gave you guys. No deviations. So we've got that that horizontal line across the middle, 1/3 down, 2/3 up. A semicircle on top of it. Dropping down from that semicircle, we have a triangle. And inside that triangle, we've got a smaller triangle. We've got that inner and outer triangle. We've got a series of horizontal lines within. And then inside the smaller triangle, we've got a series of thin vertical lines. And we said on the left-hand side, we'd put a car. No, I said a car. A bit better. And then on the left-hand side, we had 3 thin vertical rectangles, and we topped them with circles, but make it interesting, we said bumpy circles. On the right-hand side, we had 2 not so thin rectangles, a bit more chunky, and we made them 3D cuboids. We gave them a bit more substance, and we topped one with a triangle and the other one a semicircle. Now, from what comments I'm seeing, no one got that. Now, why is that? Is that my instructions? Is it the terminology I used? Is it the assumptions of your understanding? Is it your assumptions that's the issue there? Or is it a mixture of all of it? Well, in truth, it is the mixture of all of it. When somebody comes into a business for the first time and they've never worked there before, they start off with a blank piece of paper. Verbal communication, the training that we do when we sit down with somebody and start talking to them about what their job is, has this tendency to not be able to fill in the full picture. Somebody's coming into accounting, or someone's coming into property, or somebody's coming into manufacturing or in engineering. There's going to be terminologies specific to that industry which they will not know. And so the person training them may not want to use words like sunset, trees, buildings, pavement, because they may be in the assumption that the person doesn't know that, and they may not. And so they may go down to the basic description to try and aid somebody to understand how to do their job. But equally, I could have told you that the triangle was pointing upwards. I could have told you that the inner triangle started off at the same point. I could have gave better description as to the pavement, as to the buildings. There's lots of things we can do better, but with verbal communication, there's still going to be limitations. There's still going to be the issue, the person starting off with a blank piece of paper, and the person training them is needing to then be constantly involved in that training. So if there's a report, the person is needing to give them a full description of how to do that report. And sure, they might give them some instructions and walk away, come back and find out what they're doing isn't anything what they expected. And that goes down to a number of different reasons. If somebody's starting off with a blank piece of paper, they might write notes, but their takeaway in terms of what they feel is important from your instructions may not be yours. What you know is important because you've done the job isn't the same as what their impression of what's important when they're looking at a blank piece of paper. In addition to that, somebody coming in and being trained verbally, there may be particular circumstances, a particular variation of an activity that they do at that particular point. It's a certain report, it's for a particular type of client, and so the person that's doing the training knows that every time they do X, but most other reports will do Y, but the person's only going to get the experience of doing X because that's what's presented to them. And that may not become apparent for a while because the person makes assumptions that the training was successful because they've seen them do X lots of times, but they never do Y because they've never known about Y. And that's where process maps comes in. Process map allows you to give an overview of the picture. If there's terminology involved in there that is going to be new to a person, you can put in a glossary of what those terminologies mean so that you can talk in terms of the industry and the person can follow and understand where you're coming from. You also put down what you feel is important. One of the elements that I often get asked is that process maps can't work for creative industry because there's too much flexibility. And process maps aren't about restricting that creativity. But process maps are about making sure the structure's in place. And so the critical elements that relate to that structure, that make that structure successful, are going to be in the process map. Sure, with some creative elements, you're going to leave some flexibility in there. If you've got a process map for a cup of tea, you're not going to tell somebody which spoon to pick up, how many times to stir the cup of tea. There's going to be some creativity in there. That's obviously a very simple example, and there's a lot more complex examples out there. So process map allow you to give that framework for that training. Now, I'm not saying don't do the verbal communication. Verbal communication is vital. It builds relationships. It does give another dimension, but it shouldn't be the only way that that training is done. So why are process maps essential? The number 3 reason is training. Now that doesn't just mean internal training. Sometimes small businesses have VAs, have virtual assistants. Again, with a virtual assistant, being able to give them a document that has the critical steps in it, has the elements that we talked about earlier, the non-standard elements, is critical to allow them to pick up your business and understand how to run with it, what you feel is important, and how to aid you faster. Without the verbal communication, without the constant, in addition to the verbal communication, as I say, without the constant queries coming in and it starts disrupting you as much as it was you doing the job, it gives you that overwhelming understanding. So we left Bob. He was initially by himself. He had these ideas in his head of how he did things, and he had some notes for how he did some other things. But Bob's expanding now. He's going to get some staff in, and so Bob's sensible. He contacts WTS, he contacts Arent Technical Solutions, said, can you help me map out my processes? So come in and map out his processes. Now, we don't have all the fancy colors in there because for the process map itself, it's not important to know whether that's from past experience, whether that's for current experience, whether that's training is done. All we're trying to do is map out how he's doing things, how he's, and actually put them on paper. Now, a couple of things are going to happen. One, when you're mapping the process map out, Bob is going to start seeing things himself that are inefficient, they could do better, because Bob's been doing the job day in, day out. He's been involved in the inside of the day-to-day firefighting, day-to-day problems. And this will be the first time that Bob has actually looked at how he's doing things from a top level. And so for the first time, Bob can actually look at his business and go, I can miss out a couple of those steps. A couple of those steps aren't really needed. There's something I did right at the start of the business to confirm myself, check myself. There may be steps in there that he wants to add in, when he's passing them off to a virtual assistant for the first time or to staff, where he wants to make sure there's additional checks in there. He's going to be able to see his business from a different angle for the first time. Now, when I'm doing the process map with him, I'm going to be asking him questions. I'm going to be asking, how does this happen? What's the decision points here? Bob may say, we do A and then we do D. And I go, but how do you get from A to D? And he goes, oh, well, I do this, we get B and C. And so we start fleshing out more detail that Bob hasn't considered. I'll ask Bob why he does things. And that'll be a constant question when I'm doing process maps with somebody. Why do you do that? Is there a particular thing that's happened in the past that is forced you to consider this? Or is it just something you do by rote? Is there a reason for it? And through that, we're going to get to some basis of why things happen, what the goal is behind these process maps, and we're going to modify them so they're efficient and they meet what those goals are. Now, as we mentioned, Bob is going to get some staff in. He's going to train them up on these process maps that WTS helped with. On that front of WTS helping with process maps, it doesn't need to obviously be great if it's Arent Technical Solutions, but it needs to be someone independent. It needs to be someone that can question those process maps, question Bob. Now, overall on that person can be internal to the business, providing they are able to bring in that questioning, to allow them to develop those process maps. And that's somewhere where a consultant like myself, business support, can actually bring in that independence. But as we mentioned, Bob's got some staff. Now, when he's training that's his new staff with his process maps, they're going to ask questions. Some of them may have experiences in the past in this industry, and they may go, in my previous job, I did this. Now the answer from Bob might be, that's fine, but here we do it this way because of this. Other times, apologies for the background noise that might be coming in. Other times, they may say, have you considered doing this? And it may be a new idea. There may be some younger individuals that's got access to technology or been using technology that Bob hasn't considered. That, again, will lead to potential changes that Bob can consider to bring in the business. So as things are happening, there's going to be modifications. There's going to be additional experience changes to those process maps of how they're doing things. Now, not only will the process map allow for that understanding of how things have been done and improvements, Once Bob has got his process maps in place, he can then use them to make considerations for future improvements. And so I may come in and go, Bob, there's this new piece of software that is going to combine your CRM functions with your booking functions and your document control functions. Brilliant, he goes. So how does that impact the business? Well, we get the process maps out. We go, what changes are going to happen to those process maps with this? And so we create a new draft. We don't touch the ones that existence. They stay at the current revision, but we take a new draft and we make some changes, some predictive changes of how that new system is going to impact the processes. And we go, where's the improvements? Where's the disadvantages? Because all changes are going to have both advantages and disadvantages. And from there, we can make judgments on whether we bring that system in, whether we look for something else, how that best fits in the business. And if we decide to bring that system in and we've got this draft process map, when it comes in place, we then launch that as a new revision, but then we monitor it. We make sure that our predictions match reality, because there's always going to be little changes throughout. And so we make sure that monitoring is in place, and then we update the process map to reality, and that reality is a new revision, and we can use that then to see what other efficiencies we do in the business. Now, this is no different to any other KPI, where we got cash flow and you see how each month progresses, and then you make decisions based on previous months and future months, whether that's your marketing, you see whether physical advertising, whether Facebook, whether LinkedIn, whatever works, and then you make decisions on that. Process maps allow for that KPI to be brought into your business improvements, so that you've got a set structure that you can build upon, that you say, this is the now I've got something that tells me how it works, this is what I want to move it into, this is the potential. If something goes wrong within the business, then you go and see mum. If something goes wrong within the business, we can then revert back. You can revert back to a previous revision, and you're not making ad hoc guesses. You're not just coming in and saying, I've made these changes, it didn't work, how do I revert back to it previously? So number 2 about why process maps are foundation of the business is the business improvement functions that it allows to be brought in. So a long time ago, we left Bobby. We focused on Bob and we left Bobby. Bobby left school and did a apprenticeship in plumbing. So she went directly into plumbing. She worked in a plumbing industry for 7 years. And so in the late 20s, she is also going to go into own plumbing company by herself. They start the companies around the same time. Bobby 27, Bob 35. Different people, different backgrounds. And with that, she's going to have different take on those core processes. She's going to have different level of experience. Now, again, she wouldn't have had the experience on the marketing side, on the cash flow side, and so she would go on courses. She'd go on different courses, and so she'll have different take hours. But even if she went on the exact same courses as Bob, her takeaway in terms of what she thinks is important is going to be different, because they're different people. They've got different backgrounds. They've got different family life. They've got different way they're growing up. They're just different people. But lots of people in this area where they're both starting the business need plumbers. And so they're both being successful. And after 18 months, she herself is starting to expand, and she's got 3 new staff members. She didn't get anyone to create process maps. She is training them verbally, more on the job, with direct instructions. And she's getting frustrated that they're not always following what they're doing and how they're doing things. And she's noticing that Bob's getting the lion's share of the work in the region. That he's getting the interactions, networking. It's Bob that people refer to. She's noticed that people will mention his business in other circles, and she's not getting the business that she expects. Now, one thing that Bobby has heard is that people make the business, and she's made that assumption that the three people that Bob's got working for him must be the reason why Bob has got the successes that he's got. So Bobby goes on Facebook, and in this fictional world we're developing, finds out that all three of Bob's workers like bacon. So she offers them bacon sandwiches every morning at work, in addition to a higher wage. Now Bob's left without any workers, and there's three people in the local area that have just been made redundant, and so he takes them on. Doesn't give them a pay rise. Why would he? Now, just because we switched staff here, does that mean that the processes within the business are going to change? No. See, doesn't matter about changing the staff. Bob's still got his process maps. He's still going to bring in the new people. He's still going to train them on his processes. He's still going to go through how he wants things done. Sure, they may bring in something new that he hasn't considered, that continuous improvement, that business development we talked about. But he's not going to change his business wholesale for new employees. He's going to train them. They're going to have a process map for the first time to follow. And that's how his business is going to continue. Bobby doesn't have a process map. She's going to try to keep verbally doing instructions. Still going to get frustrated. But she's also not going to just allow these three people coming into her business and doing what they want, how they did things at Bob. There's still things that she will think are core successes within her business that she's going to verbally try to get them to follow. And the people aren't going to think about process maps, because that's not something generally that when you're doing day-to-day job that you think about, that you constantly worry about at that level. Now, why do people say that people are the business? Well, because what they're talking about when they mention that is culture. When you think back to your corporate life from 10 years ago, you don't think about the minute-to-minute workings of the job. You don't think about how you filled out that report, how that template worked. What you think about is the conversations you had with your colleagues, whether that is in the kitchen about family, about sports games at the weekend, whether that is talking about meeting, going out on a night time. They're the conversations you remember. They're the relationships that you build. It's the people you remember. But from a business point of view, the business is the processes. That's what makes a business successful. The actual minute-to-minute working that people do without remembering long-term. They obviously have got focused during it. And process maps are key to allow that to happen. So why are process maps essential? The number one reason is because they represent the business's DNA. They represent what the business does that is successful, what the business does that is unique to other businesses. And that flows right through the training and the business improvement. It's when somebody comes into a business, it's how they know to do something different to how they did it before. So What are the 3 reasons why I feel process maps are essential? Training, to allow for personnel to know what the important aspects are of the business, but also to know what to do when the non-standard comes up, so that as a business owner, you can take a week's break, a 2-week break, and you can come back to the business knowing that your knowledge, your information has been carried on by people that's working, because although they may not sit with the process map sitting on the desk day in, day out, when that non-standard happens, they can pull it up, whether that's from a drawer or whether that's from a nice document controlled digital system, and go, this is what I do at this point. They're vital for business improvements. They allow for that overall structure to know where the business is currently, where it's been, and where it's going. And they represent the business's DNA. They represent what it is that makes that business unique. Now, earlier, I did say that people aren't the business. There are a few exceptions. So Bob carries on with his business. He's never been worried about Bobby because he's got the business in. He knows that it's been successful. He's got one of his employees back, and over the years, he's expanded even further. 5 years down the line, he's now got a large team that, he's not actually going out doing the plumbing anymore. He's managing a team that's going out and replicating what he does. Now, Tim here has been excellent on the marketing front. Okay, so Tim has excelled helping, initially helping Bob with marketing, but now Bob's recognized his skill with marketing, and he sent him on some specific courses to actually enhance how he actually does the marketing. And when he comes back into the business, he is going to take over marketing department. Bob's business is now getting to the point where it's going to have departments. It's not just going to have Bob and a few people working underneath him. It's going to start in departments. And when that happens, Tim is going to enhance that. We already said right at the beginning that Bob was the marketing expert. He went on courses. He's brought some of his own elements into it. He's brought some experience, but he's never been a marketing expert, which Tim is. So Tim is going to take that and enhance it. If we go back to the picture that we drew earlier, if I got an artist in and I used some proper descriptive elements, and I talked about the sunset, and I talked about the road and the city landscape with trees, tree line arc on one side and buildings on the other side, an artist would take that and enhance it. They wouldn't have my blocky car. They'd have a road with some actual real almost moving cars in it. They would enhance what I started and turn it into a piece of art. The exact same happens within our businesses when we bring in experts. When we bring in experts, when we start getting to that point of expanding, they enhance what we start. But they're not going to just start from scratch and rip out everything, because the majority of the time, people that we bring into the business have a very similar way of thinking of us, because that's how we can work with them, because they have a similar way of thinking. Not identical, but similar. So although Bob will want to be involved with Tim in terms of understanding where he wants to take department and things, he's going to let Tim run with it because he trusts him, because he's worked with Tim. He's going to understand how those enhancements are going to aid the business. So process maps, training, business improvement, representation of the DNA. They're all vital elements that give a business a foundation which they can build upon, a foundation which is scalable. You might start off with those 3 basic process maps, and then as things happen, you're going to break things off. You're going to add some more detail. You're going to simplify some areas. You're going to add some new process maps in others. Process maps allow that scalability, allow that understanding of history and future. Now, today we've just talked about why the foundation. We have not touched on at all about how to create process maps, how to go through those critical questions that you need to ask when pulling together a process map. And that's something which I'm going to be doing on a course that I am hosting on the 20th to 24th of September. On the screen there is a QR code which you can scan while it's up on screen, and that'll take you to Eventbrite where you can book onto that course. That course will take you through from basics of how to consider the process map to the critical questions to ask to actually developing it. The 5 days are going to be split into, first day is going to be the blank page. Second day is going to be on the structure itself. Third day is going to be on the creativity versus restrictive. And the fourth day is a test and confirm cycle, which is vital. And the fifth day is format and style. Thank you very much, Mark. That's fantastic if you can join us. The course itself is split up into, it's going to have its own private Facebook group, and between 9 and 10 every morning, I'm going to be doing a session just like this, where I'm going to be talking. Questions obviously are vital, but I'm going to be going through some critical elements and set some activities. That will be live 9 till 10, but it'll also be available in the group throughout the day for you to access. Then in the evening at 8 till 9 is an open session where it's for discussion. So we'll talk about the topic of the day. And we'll also have one-to-ones with each of the business, which is why I'm limited to 15 businesses, so that we can look at the bespoke elements for your business of how that the base topic impacts it with your business and how we can pull that forward. No process map software will be needed. A computer with Zoom is going to be obviously vital. Microsoft Office is going to be useful because you're going to have the shapes there, but pencil and paper will be complete. It will be absolutely sufficient. Mark, if you can scan that and have a look at the details on Eventbrite. The course is 700, but if I want as many small businesses as possible to take part in it, so if there's an issue with that, have a conversation with me. There are some WTS subscriptions we can get you involved with that can take that price down from the initial to what it needs to be. My contact details are up on the screen as well, both telephone number and email address. And so if you've got any questions, please let me know and we can go through that. Right, I am going to leave it there for today. Thank you very much for the people that joined us. Thank you, Mark, for joining me on Zoom. And I hope you have a good Wednesday. And I will talk to as many of you as I can soon and hopefully see you on the course. If you're joining us late, I just want to quickly say that the course is being repeated on the, let me have a look at dates. Of course, this session that we just, that you're joining late on is going to be repeated on the 3rd of September. I will not have kids on the 3rd of September. It will be quieter. And then again on the 8th of September, I think the 8th might be the final time, but there may be one the 17th. So if you're joining us late, please join one of those other sessions. And again, if you want to know how to do that, contact me. Thank you very much for your time. Thank you, Mark, and goodbye.